Hey, how's it going? Hey, welcome to the Absolutely Live interview. This is Greg M. And tonight I've got a very special guest. It is none other than Melissa Harding. And Melissa Harding is not only an amazing vocalist, she has her own vocal workshops that she does. She's also formerly of the band, well, she was part of the touring band for Sixx AM. And of course, you know Sixx AM, Nikki Sixx's side project, which included DJ Ashba and, of course, James Michael handling lead vocals on that project. So she, I've talked to Melissa in the past via message on Instagram. And I know how that came about for her, but I am going to ask her questions about that so that you guys can find out how that came about for her. She's an amazing artist. She's got a background in classical voice. Like I said, she's a teacher of voice. She's a tremendous vocalist in her own right. She's got a couple of albums out, and she also did a duet with James Michael from Sixx AM a while back. I was just listening to that on my way home from work today. But I see that Melissa's on, and I'm going to ask her to come on. So give me just one moment. I hope you guys are doing good. We have a Monday night edition here of the Absolutely Live interview. I used to only do the show, if you remember back in the day, on Sunday nights. But now I'm just kind of being more fluid with it. I'm doing it anytime that the artists are available. So Melissa was available Monday night. I'm doing that. I've got another show a couple nights from now. I think it's 3 nights from now. And I'm doing it on like a Thursday night. The last show was on Thursday. So you'll see that the show is going to be flip-flopping days and stuff. So anyway, Melissa, I'll be there in just a second for you. I'm just going to get some water here. And all right.
Hello.
Hi. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Can you see me? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear and see you perfectly.
Fantastic. How you doing, Greg?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Long day in the studio today. My ears are tired.
Oh, really?
I was wearing headphones for like probably 6 hours today, I feel like. So
Oh my God. That'll drive you nuts after a while.
What city are you in?
I'm in I'm in Fort Myers. Well, close to Fort Myers in Cape Coral.
Whoa.
Yeah. It's nice over here. It's Southwest Florida.
That's awesome.
But like you and I have been on Instagram for a while together, and we've never actually spoken. So
No.
I'm excited to speak with you.
I didn't know you did a show until you asked me to come chat with you. So here we
I
are.
know. Yeah. And you know what? A while ago, I don't know if you remember, you had sent me one of your CDs a long time ago, which was
oh yeah, my old CD,
the old one.
first CD I ever did. I did
Yes.
print far too many of them, so I have these, and so occasionally I'll go. I should do that again. I'll
Yeah.
go on Instagram and say, "Hey, does anybody want a CD? Let me know." And I'll send you one. So that's awesome. I'm so glad. That's
Yeah, it's really good actually. Yeah, they have it on iTunes too. So I was
Yeah.
listening to it today.
You can find me on those spots. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I'm very excited to speak with you. You have a wealth of experience that I would love to dive into.
Yeah.
Most of all, I mean, I'm excited because I sang for years, right? And I sent you a video, just kind of, hey, can you kind of see what you think about this?
That's awesome.
And you were kind enough to write back and say that I did good. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. It means a lot.
Very cool voice. Very cool voice. I always, I never mind that. If people just want some feedback or, I mean, the thing about singing, right, is that there's no rules, right?
Yeah.
Really, there's so many different types of artists and genres and things that you can do with your voice. And so I love when people want to talk about singing and their voice. And you know what I mean? It's always fun for me to check out new singers. So I'm always happy to do that.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, anybody that's watching, if you sing, Melissa just said it, send her a video or something if you got something on YouTube or
and
whatever.
Make sure to follow my voice page. We're on my personal, but I do have a page on Instagram where I used to post some of that on my personal page. And one of my friends, actually, Shay, who's a coach that I know, she was like, you should make a a voice Instagram, and it's
Mm-hmm.
so fun because now
Good.
like it's a place to just really obsess about that. And
Mm-hmm.
I've been a vocal coach, started when I was like 18, 20, and it was kind of random. It just fell into my life, but I really love it. And I love talking about singing, and I love helping people with their
Yeah.
journey. So it's great. So yeah, follow me on Melissa Harding Voice as well if you want like singing tips.
Absolutely, for sure. And I follow it too, and it's great. I mean, I love your little videos that you put on there all the time, and it's very useful for sure.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
So let's go back to when you were 18 and you started in voice.
Yeah.
Was it at 18, or were you singing since you were little? Like, how did
Oh
it
God.
start for you?
Oh, I started coaching
Oh,
voice.
coaching. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
coaching. I'm like, wow,
I
you're amazing for like, you're only probably like whatever, but it's like, wow.
I
Amazing.
started studying quite young. I mean, I started studying voice when I was 9, I believe, was when I
Wow.
went into lessons. And I always say this, but at the time, it was truly like, go do that somewhere where someone's going to teach you to control the volume. Because I was very a big singer, just
Yeah,
big voice, and my
yeah.
sister and I were just belting stuff out. And so it started very young for me, but I moved to LA at 18 and immediately started vocal directing a children's theater company, and that's kind of how I fell into teaching voice. But yeah, my background was in musical theater. I mean, I thought, and that's why I always tell people, don't decide 100% because you never know for sure which
Right,
avenue you led to. And when I came to LA, I wanted to be an artist, but I didn't, what does that mean? It's a little,
right, right.
but I always loved musical theater. I really thought that that was going to be the thing that I did. But to be honest, I was auditioning a lot, and I kept getting told like, you'd be great for this part in 15 years, stuff like
Mm,
that. And I was like, this is not happening for me. And then
right.
I fell much more into the music industry. And a lot of that is, I have James to thank for that a lot because he really trained me. You already mentioned Sixx AM, but James, the lead
Yeah.
singer of Sixx AM, he really trained me as a studio singer.
Mm.
He started hiring me when I was 18 years old and I moved to LA. To be fair, I was bugging him. I knew him since I was a kid. He'd persistent, like want to hang out.
Yeah.
I just wanted to like be around him because I knew that he was in the business, and I said, if you need me to sing anything, tell me. And I always loved pop music and rock music, and he's the one that really, brought me into the studio and taught me to be a really solid studio singer. And
Yeah.
so that led to a lot of my career, and the things that have happened since then. It was really
Yeah.
that time and that training that made me prepared for that world, I guess.
Yeah. And so how does it differ? Because I'm not a studio singer. I mean, I've recorded albums and stuff, but I'm not really a studio singer. Like you were saying before, you kind of are able to hone your voice, for being loud and whatever. And you heard my voice. I'm very loud like that. But I've never really learned as a singer to be a studio singer. So it is separate. I mean, when you're a live performer and you're a studio singer, it's a different animal.
Oh
So
yeah.
tell me about your experience with that. Like, if you can go into that a little bit, because I'm really interested in that. I'm sure people that are watching are interested.
Yeah.
How
The,
did you do that? You
the
know?
thing about it, one of the things that's funny, and I do talk to my students about this because this stuff is important. Training is
Yeah.
great.
Yes.
Training is a great thing. When I studied classical voice, it taught me so much about breathing, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
But the reality is when it comes to pop and rock singing, it's not really like, nobody told, Billy Joel how to be Billy Joel. He just is.
Right.
you know,
Right. Exactly.
he has his own take on things, his own way of approaching things. There's not really rules.
Yeah.
And so, in the classical voice world, I would say there's more rules. In musical theater, there's specific techniques and certain things. But even in that world,
Mm.
when Rent came out on Broadway or Hamilton, I mean, the styles have changed, right? So
Yes.
pop singers and rock singers, it's like you got to kind of figure out your way of approaching things. Now, the studio thing, the thing that's really important for people to understand about the difference between live and studio is in the studio, we can really experiment and play and come up with things because it's not set yet. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I say James kind of trained me, I sort of mean he would bring me in and just taught me to take notes quickly. And this is from the perspective of a singer that's being hired by someone else to come in and sing on their song. So for Sixx AM, I sang on a lot of different projects they did, but mainly like on the 2 records we made when we were on the road, you know, being able to take notes quickly and do other things, try different things. So I remember saying to me when I was young, think a little less trained right now, you know. And it was an interesting note because I was kind of like, oh, I can do things that I didn't really think about doing with my voice. It would encourage to play characters, like, so like on a lot of Sixx AM stuff, there's a lot of theatrical vocals, you know,
for sure.
So he would say things like, you know, I remember this one song we did on, I think it was on Blessed, Prayers for the Blessed. Ooh, I'm trying to think if that's true, because there's a lot of songs on those 2 records, but
yes, there are
a lot of characters. It was a very Queenie like song, very like vocals. And it was like the high part, it was like, think like young and bright, and then it would be like, now you're like an old woman, and like, you know, playing, we would talk and play and try stuff and whisper stuff and then go back and do it a different way. And so being a loud singer, is my dog trying to escape? Oh, my dog wants his dinner. I'm gonna let him out really quick while I'm talking.
Is it Bentley?
Here's the golden retriever Buckley. Yes. He's very excited to go have dinner time. Goodbye. So, you know, he encouraged me to play. He encouraged me to try things with my voice that maybe I would not have done before. And it's so interesting because now, you know, all these years later as a vocal coach, like I talk about this stuff constantly with my students, encouraging them to try different stuff, break the rules, go outside of your comfort zone, make different noises, right? Because again, the voice and singing, it's all noises, it's sound, it's all the different sounds you've ever heard come out in different ways, right? Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, so and just in terms of live performance versus studio, I think the last thing that's super important to touch on is that it's just different. When you're in the studio, you get to call cut.
Yes,
you know?
Exactly.
Say, let me go do it again.
Yep.
When you're live, that ain't it. So
it's like this show. It is what it is.
Yep. You gotta know how to sing songs, and you gotta know how to sing them all the way through. And that's the thing. When even when we went on tour with Sixx AM, that was huge for James. Yeah. He didn't have a vocal coach when he went out on Crew Fest, but when we went out on tour those last few years with Sixx AM, we worked the hell out of those songs before we got on the road.
Well, you have to. I mean, you know, the audience is expecting a certain product, and if you don't deliver that product, you know, you got problems. So
and it's and it's one thing also when you're the producer and the songwriter, it's like you have to take off those hats. You have to put on the singer hat, and you have to like get ready to do that job, especially with such challenging songs. But yeah, I love singing in the studio. I really do. I love it. I think it's really fun, you know, to go into the studio and play, and it's really where I learned, to be a more pro singer and show up and do the thing and leave.
Right. Now you guys lay the tracks. I'm out of here.
Yep, exactly.
That one clip that I copied and I put on this page of you when you're doing that beautiful operatic gymnastics thing, man, that was so gorgeous. Now, was that planned? Because it sounds like now it might have been planned. Or was it just an impromptu thing for you?
I'll tell you how it came.
Yes, please.
So Goodbye, My Friends was the song, which is off of This Is Gonna Hurt, I believe. And it just has this beautiful piano outro. It has a lovely piano outro, and we were in rehearsals for Sixx AM, and you know, I'm always singing, so I was wandering around rehearsal, and we were talking about the outro and blah blah blah, and I started just for fun and like singing.
Yeah, just going with the music, right?
Yeah, just kind of playing with it, and Nikki looked at me, stared at me. He gave me like a very knowing face, and I was like, he goes, "Do that." And you know, it kind of was like, what could you put there? That's cool.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh.
Okay.
Well, I guess we're bringing the
okay, boss.
It was really neat though, and it was kind of the scariest part of the show for me, because there's a lot of belting in that set, a lot of more heavy stuff, and so for me, that's a real shift of hats. It's like, oh gosh, I'm like singing this rock thing, and now I have to put on my classical voice and think about that technique in that outfit, in those boots. Like it was just kind of a funny thing, but it was really fun to do. Yeah. So it was kind of a random thing that just came out in rehearsal, and then they were like, we like it. We like it.
That's so great.
Okay.
But see, that's the creative part. Like, you know, you were just hearing it in your head and it was coming out in your voice. And then they're like, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah. So it's a theatrical band. And I did sing a lot of, like, if you listen to Rise, which is off of Prayers for the Damned, you know, a lot of belty stuff, but during the chorus and the solos and stuff, there's a lot of operatic vocals that we did in the background. So there's a lot of that on the records, but I don't know if people notice that or pick up on it. And so it was fun to put it in like a cool featured moment where it, and it always was really fun to do on stage. And I would always have to take a minute and slow my breathing down and get ready to launch into it. But
absolutely,
it was awesome. And yeah, it was a cool thing that just happened at rehearsal.
That's really cool. Now, did you take part at all in the Heroin Diaries at all, or no? Or you were after?
Yeah, actually that was, you know, my first time. That was actually when I was James's assistant. So when I was about 20, you know, I asked him, like, do you need an assistant? And he was like, sure. He was working a lot of records, and so I started just helping him here and there with like just general business stuff. Actually, two of my old students at the time in the theater company I taught, I recruited 2 kids to come in for the Heroin Diaries and do all the fa la 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 fa la la.
Yeah, awesome.
Those were 2 students of mine and me, and another friend of mine was in the studio that day too. One of those kids is now like a Juilliard graduated actor. Like it's
phenomenal.
Crazy. So it's awesome. But yeah, I was around during that entire making of that record.
That's great.
Yeah, it was very cool too. It was my first time meeting the 2 of them, Nikki and DJ, and just seeing them work. And so I was just sort of on the periphery of that. But yeah, I was around.
I love that part. It's so mysterious, you know, that vocal, you know, it's kind of like, and I think that knowing what I know about the album and you know, the history of what was happening with Nikki at the time, it's funny because it's perfect. You know what I mean? It's perfectly placed because it's really kind of creepy. It's kind of unnerving a little bit, but at the same time, it's really beautiful, right? So it's got a lot of different points to it. Did you get the same feeling?
So theatrical, you know,
very theatrical.
It always had, that was something. And to be honest, like, it's one of the things that makes me the most proud about being with that band on those tours, that it was a band that I really felt natural stepping into, even though I had to figure out a lot of things about myself, do it and do it well and feel good at the job. I loved backup singing, and I mean, especially with a vocalist like James, but like, it was so fun because the music was so up my alley in the sense that I come from a theatrical background.
I was just going to say that. Yep.
It matters to me, you know, telling stories and having a real drive for, and of course all musicians have that in their own world that they're in, but that in particular, it hits a little different. You know, it really was fun. Music was so interesting, and there were so many.
It's a story too. I mean, it's, you know, like you're saying, I mean, it's going through the peaks and valleys of the story. It's very interesting. You know, there was a time where I mean, I lived and died by that record. Like, I really did, because it was so interesting and so it just felt so real. I mean, obviously it was very real, but yeah, it's just something that really hit with me. I mean, luckily in my life, thank God, I had never had a situation, you know, happen to me like that. But it was unbelievable to kind of live that moment, you know, through the music.
Yeah,
so it was pretty interesting.
Absolutely, I agree. I will always be a fan of that record. I mean, you know, there's in all of the records, but you know, in particular, there was that was what started it. You know, so it's cool, and I'm grateful that I was around during that time. It was a very different time in my life, you know, and James has been my dearest friend for years and years, and I've known him since I was 11 years old. But that was, you know, that was very cool to be like, I'm an assistant and this music being made, you know. It was just a cool thing, and I would never, in a million years, if you had asked me then if I would predict that I would have gone on stage with that band, like I
Well,
never,
how could you know that? Yeah, I mean, it's no way.
I would,
Nobody would imagine that.
yeah. I mean, tell me 10 years before that I would have bright red hair and I would be, like I just never could have predicted it. So that's what's also so awesome about music and just being an artist is that if you're open,
Yeah,
you never know.
that's
You
true. You
never
never
know.
know. And your classical background and your theater background, I mean, thinking about it, it really lended itself perfectly to your role in those tours.
Yeah.
It just made sense, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure to you, you're like, wow, this is perfect. This is what I want.
Well, yeah, they were
I'm
kind
trained for this.
of, it was funny because when that conversation came up, actually bringing backup singers, I was really just starting to talk to James about coaching him. So I would start, he was starting to like, I need to get ready for this. And
Yeah,
I remember him saying something about we're thinking about having singers. And I remember my ears just perked and I was like,
that they did. Yeah.
like I want to do this job.
I want to be one.
I didn't know what they had in mind. So it
Yeah,
was very like you never know. You don't know. You don't really know until you know, right? And
yep,
so kind of one of those weird things that just fell into again. And but I will say it's because of relationships, right? It's
yes,
because
absolutely.
of, I'm very close to that friend and I
Yes,
respect he respects me and so we love working together and
yeah.
so hey Mike Sarge, we love working together, so it's a great thing when that leads to something so special. And it gave me a very exciting few years on the road and
Awesome.
glad I got to do it. I'm just
That is
really
so awesome. Really
yeah.
awesome. And you and James, like you had alluded to it before, you have known James for since you're 11, you said, right?
Yeah,
I
he
mean,
was.
how does that feel for you as his coach to see the success that he had with Sixx AM? And I don't really know his other projects. I wish that I did because I love him as a singer. I mean, he's phenomenal. He's a really good singer.
When I met him, he was, so I mentioned I vocal directed a children's theater company for many years.
Yes. Yeah.
I grew up in that children's theater company in
Mm.
Northern. When I moved to LA, they started a Southern California branch. That's who I started teaching with. But when I was in Northern California as a kid, James worked with that theater company
Huh.
before he was involved with Sixx AM and was
Right.
back in LA. And I was about 11 years old when I met him. He was my teacher, he was
Wow.
my vocal teacher. And then I became an adult and was out here. And then years later, became his vocal coach. And that's just kind of a
Great.
weird, like full circle moment, right?
Crazy. Yeah.
But he had an album when I was a kid that we were all obsessed with. It was
Really?
called Hail, and it's a beautifully written album. I keep encouraging him to re-record it because those songs are just, they hit so good. And I'm like, you got to bring them back,
I'm sure they
So
do.
call and request him on the radio and stuff. So yeah, I mean, it was very exciting to
Yeah.
see it blow up, Sixx AM to blow up to what it became. And
Yes.
it was awesome. I mean, it was some of the most exciting years of my life. But yeah, we've known each other since I was very, very young. And I'm very grateful for that friendship because it's one of the most important ones in my life, really.
Phenomenal. I love when you talk like that because, I heard, I know James had his podcast for a while and I would listen to you guys banter back and forth. And it was really interesting because you got the feeling of, these are just two pals hanging out and just talking.
We're thinking of starting another one. So
I
maybe
hope so. It was great.
we might start another one, which would be fun.
I hope that you do because, yeah, it was like being a fly on the wall with just two friends, chit-chatting about stuff. And, he's a really introspective guy, and very interesting and you as well. And you guys just go back and forth and it was very good. So I hope you do. I really hope you start that
I
up
think
again.
we will at some point. He is he's definitely interested in it. I am too. We're both busy with stuff, but we're
Yeah.
We're gonna figure out a thing we're gonna do at some point.
I really hope so. That's awesome. So can you tell me about when you first recorded your first album that we were talking about earlier? Where were you at musically with that? Because it's very it's like more of a slower record. It's kind of is it pop? Do you think? Like what do you? What would you
that is an interesting question. My old buddy Doug Showalter produced that record and wrote a lot of those songs, and And when I met Doug, who's just a killer musician of all kinds, he's out in Nashville now. You know, I was very like in a place of just writing a bunch of different stuff. I've never really known like what my personal songwriting genre is. It's like I should ask my friend Shay about this because she's so good at coming up with names of like what your is. You know, I'm like a singer-songwriter, and some of it, you know, the first song off of that EP was called Set Me Apart, and the title track is very chill. It's
it is.
Acoustic track. Set Me Apart itself is an acoustic track.
Yep.
Really, really simple, really, really pretty, and just not a lot going on. But the first song on it, Till You're Gone, is a little more rock and roll. You know, it's like there's stuff happening on that EP. I think I would call it like singer-songwriter pop, you know, something like that.
Yeah.
But we had so much fun making it. I mean, it was a really exciting time in my life, actually, in LA as a musician, because I don't know if this is just like a pre-pandemic thing or something, but it was a time where we were like always out at clubs playing shows. You know, it was just like so normal to be like dragging all my friends and stuff out to the Sunset Strip. And so it was a bit of a younger time in my life. But it was really fun. And I really still love a lot of those songs a lot. They're, you know, they mean a lot to me. And then we made a second EP together called Best of Me, and those 5 songs were really fun too. You know, we just had a good time making them. So, and I just do fun. I always say, like, I'm not trying to, you know, be the next Kelly Clarkson or anything. I just like recording songs. I just like songs, and I like singing, and I like writing, and so it's fun to just put the music out, you know, no matter who listens to it. Even if it's 10 people, I'm like, yay, 10 people.
Right. And that one song, Stay With Me, is on that one. That's a great track. Really great track. Beautiful blending of the voices. Really, really nice.
Really excited James was willing to sing on it with me, because it was a very unique song to me. I had come in with a lot of that song written, and Doug, my producer, had written just some really almost like classical sounding guitar parts, and I was like, ooh, interesting. You know, we just had a lot of fun writing it. I was really happy that James was willing to sing it with me, because I always wanted to do a duet. And we might do that again at some point in the future, but it was really fun to have him come sing it, especially on my project.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it was really good. It came out really great. You know, in my opinion, I think it's awesome. Like I said, I was listening to your music before, and that's an enjoyable song to listen to.
It's a sad song. It's kind of a haunting song.
It is, yeah.
Sad, you know?
It is.
I wrote that about one of my past relationships. That was just, you know, it was sort of a song to me that was, if I could describe it, it's like, the song's called Stay With Me, but it's really about like hanging on just by a thread. It's like, it's not working really, and there's one thread left that's holding, and you're just clinging for dear life to it, hoping that it's going to work out. And it didn't work out. So
well, sometimes that's the best. Sometimes that's the best motivation, right? To make a song,
right?
You know?
It didn't work out, and it was a very genuine song about wishing it would, but it didn't. You know, and so that's really, it was sort of the song leading to the end, and you know, and I really, I love that song. I really do.
It's really well written, and it's really well sung.
Thank you.
I have to say, you're welcome. I've kind of been in that mode lately, like kind of listening to those types of songs, and that one kind of hit me, and I was like, "Wow, this is so nice! Like, it's just really well done."
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I don't know if a lot of people have heard it, so go listen, everybody.
Go listen to it, yeah, for real. Get it on iTunes if you have an iPhone. Just get it on iTunes or the other. I don't know what the other one is. Oh, Google for it. What is it?
I said, or wherever you listen to
your music, Spotify or whatever. You're on Spotify, right?
Yep, I'm on all of them. Yep.
Awesome. Yeah. So when you go to write an album, like you're saying, you're not really doing it for the fame or fortune or whatever. Do you go into the studio with your songs already done? Do you write the songs while you're there? What is your process when you're making an album for yourself?
It's been different times. I mean, there were certain songs off of both of those EPs that I would say I showed up to the writing session and they were pretty done. But if you look on those EPs, you know, most of them were co-written by me and Doug, you know, so maybe it was like I had verses and choruses written, but I couldn't figure out a bridge. I've always found the trickiest thing for me.
The
So
bridges? I didn't hear you.
I said sometimes bridges are
Yeah.
like the tricky thing for me
Yep.
to figure out. And so there was always like a missing piece that I
Mm-hmm.
was sort of needing to bring to the finish line. I wouldn't say that I write on the spot. And that's an interesting thing, you know, seeing Sixx AM sessions over the years, is that those three guys would come in the room and just be, you know, sometimes it was the track first, then they would do vocals, then they would do melodies. And I'm kind of a melody and chord progression at the same time, lyrics
Mm-hmm.
kind of gal. So
Yeah.
I write things all at once. Although I will say I'm producing a bit now. I'd never produced anything myself before the last few years. And a couple years ago, I released my first self-produced track, which was a Christmas song called Holiday Lights. And since then, because I'm producing, I'm changing that a little bit. Like I'm starting to do that thing where if I don't have the full song done, I'll still start recording it and then I'll
Mm-hmm.
figure it out, you know, as I go. And that's, but it's a little bit easier to control now because I'm creating it myself, you know.
Right.
So, you know, it's always been kind of a lyrics and melody. I'm a top line type of person. I like to
Right.
focus on those two things first. So that's
Good.
kind of how I always jump in.
Awesome. Now, I really haven't gotten to your influences, and I'm interested to know who who's like your most like the most unbelievable singers you've ever heard in your life. You post a lot of incredible singers, so it's really hard to pinpoint who are some of your favorites.
Well,
And I do the same thing on my other page, my regular page. I just throw stuff up that I like. But, you know, who are some of the ones that have kind of inspired you to want to be that classical singer and want to be that jazz singer? Because I've heard you sing jazz really well. And then also the rock side of you. Like, who are some of those in each genre that you really idolize?
Ooh, I'll tell you. You know, I was raised on a lot of music, you know, with my parents that we would listen to at home and play, and just naming some of the artists that were played often in our house. A big one being Fleetwood Mac. I'm a huge Stevie Nicks fan. Christine McVie just passed away.
Yes.
That was music. I know Rumors like the back of I know a million people do, but that was an album that I was obsessed with as a kid.
Yep.
So it was Rumors and Fleetwood Mac. It was, oh my gosh, my first concert ever was Neil Diamond. So this is like, now I want not like, oh, the best singers necessarily. I always use him as an example of not the prettiest voice, but one of the most emotional voices.
Correct.
And I love his voice so much. So Neil and the Beach Boys and Whitney Houston, and I mean a huge mix, a huge mix. I would say that in terms of influences, the artist that I want to reference like the most as being a huge influence on me just as a singer in terms of my understanding of telling stories and phrasing, I will always bow down to Tony Bennett. He is my absolute favorite singer that has ever graced this planet.
Awesome.
I just think he's incredible. And, you know, I've seen him many times in concert. I'm always like the youngest there. And, you know, I just love him. And that being more from the jazz side of things, but that jazz standard thing of just some of the best songs and some of the best storytelling I think I've ever heard. And I think he really taught me a lot just about the nuances of voice and how to sing big, but also how to sing small and how to really not over sing. Like tell the story, but don't work too hard. It has to be about the story, and his voice is beautiful, but it also aged beautifully. So it's all those different things. In terms of the rock world, one of my all-time favorite singers of all is Jeff Buckley, who I named my daughter.
Love.
So yeah, he was an artist. Me also just very unique, very special singer, very impressive singer, but like it was unique and quirky and interesting. But I was a big like hard rocky sort of like kind of grunge girl too. Like my favorite band in high school was the Foo Fighters, still one of my favorite bands.
Nice.
Stone Temple Pilots, Soundgarden. Like this was the stuff I was listening to in high school. I got more into a heavy like rock phase, and of course the Beatles. Like I am a massive Beatles fan. I've always been a big Beatles fan. So it's a mix. It's quite
That's the way it is, though. Sometimes it's like, what do they say? Blues at the roots, everything is the fruits. But it's like you go to one tree branch, and then it leads you to another one, and it's just like you're a music fan. You can't help it.
Oh
It's
yeah.
funny that you said Jeff Buckley too. He has this. Well, obviously it was after he passed that they put out this album called Live at Chennai. Did you ever see that? Or
Yeah.
do you hear it? Oh,
Oh yeah.
that is
Oh yeah.
absolutely incredible.
Oh yeah. There was a
Incredible.
they released after he died. There was another record that I love, and I kind of was like, would he have wanted this released? Who knows? But it was going to be called My Sweetheart the Drunk. They released
Yes.
sketches for My Sweetheart.
Yes.
I love that record as
Yep.
well. He
Yep.
just had a very special voice. I think he's a great example of like a rock guy who did not stop himself from exploring different stuff. I mean,
Right.
on Grace, there's a song called Corpus Christi that's like a full-on classical piece.
Yeah.
Like, no, like he's singing like he's in a
Yes.
church, and it's like
Yep.
it's like a hymn, and it's very interesting to me that he put
Yes.
that on that record.
Well, he could pull it off. That's the thing. It's like he had such a beautiful, creative voice, and it just, it was so fluid. It was so easy for him. It seemed.
It was so interesting. It just
Mm-hmm.
an interesting singer. He could make it ugly. He could make it
Mm-hmm.
pretty. He could just do so many different. He was a huge. I have his lyrics tattooed on my back. He was a huge influence on me for sure. And there was parts of him too. He did a cover of an old jazz song called Lilac Wine. I mean, he could sing jazz. Like
Yeah.
he could
Yeah.
sing a lot of different things. And I've always been drawn to that. I've always been drawn to singers that are chameleons that can like do a lot of different stuff, because I feel
Yeah.
that way about myself. That's one of
For
the things
sure.
I do is I like to sing different styles,
Yeah.
explore that. And it's made me, in its own way, it's made me a better singer, just being able to have the opportunity to do a bunch of different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that about singers like Jeff Buckley. He just was so interesting to hear. And
Very interesting. His cover of Hallelujah was beautiful too. Really beautiful.
oh yeah. I mean, I used to play my dad's stuff all the time. He was a lot older, and I would play him things that I was listening to. And if I played him Nirvana or something, he was like,
Yeah.
whatever. But
Yeah.
I remember playing that for him in the car, like playing it for him and like turning it up so he could really hear it. And I
Yeah.
remember when he got to that final hallelujah and went up to that note, and I remember
Yep.
like the note ended, I looked over at my dad and he had one little tear.
Really? Wow.
It's so sweet. It was like, wow, it's so touching. And it's not just, it was a very special recording, that recording. And a lot of people love other versions of Hallelujah, but if you have not heard Jeff Buckley's, you need to hear Jeff
You
Buckley.
gotta hear it. You gotta
Yeah.
hear it. I mean,
It's the-
I would say anything from him is spectacular,
yeah.
especially Chennai, the Live at Chennai. It just touches me. I mean, it's just amazing, and it's just him and a guitar, and
He was
but
a
it's so
very
huge.
guitarist too. Like
Yes,
he was
he was.
a good guitarist. He did interesting things with the guitar when he played.
Yep.
Yeah, really great performance. I mean, it's so sad that he's gone. It's
Yeah.
just died so young, and it's just a sad story. It's just sad. Yeah.
Any other artists that you really look up to? I mean, you've named some beautiful artists.
I'll tell you an artist I've followed that has just blown up in recent years, and I've always been such a fan of hers, is Brandy Carlisle. That's an artist.
Nice.
Really, like, I saw Brandy Carlisle open for Hanson, like when she was not known at all. And it was just the twins, and they came out with 3 guitars and sat on chairs and played together. And she played Hallelujah that night. I remember very clearly. And it was, she's an artist that I really look up to, just in terms of who she is, how she represents herself, how she performs on stage. Alanis Morissette, I mean, that's another artist of mine that, I mean, a lot of young women, but I grew up, we grew up on that Jagged Little Pill record. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, I would say a lot, I was trying to think of other female artists, and those are 2 that I would say are also big influences in my world. And I think I try and play with a lot of the stuff that my songs aren't like Alanis Morissette necessarily, but I like that she can be light and dark. She can be edgy, but there's kind of a light side, there's a dark side. I like that about artists like her, because she has her own voice, but she uses it different ways. And I love that. And to me, that's also like something Sixx AM was really good at.
Yeah.
There's light and there was dark, and man, could you go hard in either direction, and it worked. And
Right.
that's cool.
Exactly. Are there other, like, if you were to choose an artist, let's say, that you would love to write with or sing with or tour with,
Oh,
who would that be? I'm just interested to see where
oh
you
my
go with
God.
that.
That is a tough question. You know, it's like I think of like bands that I love and musicians that I love, and my answers might surprise you, actually. But like some of the artists that like come to mind are just bands that I love that have like really full sounds and cool voices and unique voices. Like, could I open for Counting Crows? Like that I would like, you
Oh, that'd
know?
be cool. Yeah.
Thinking of artists like that. And it's a weird answer maybe, but I've always loved his voice.
Mm,
And again, I like the idea of like if I were to go tour with somebody, I don't want it to be somebody I'm like necessarily. I want it
right.
to be somebody that I would like to watch every night, and also that maybe our music would like work in the same world even if it's in a different world. Like another band that comes to mind for me, and actually weirdly I saw them play together once, is like Goo Goo Dolls. I grew up with the Goo Goo Dolls, like
Yeah.
bands like that just had really nice songs. You know?
Yeah. What's that one song they had from that movie that was really popular? What was it?
Iris.
Oh, Iris. What a great
And
song.
I don't want
Yeah,
the
it's
world.
a great song. It
Oh yeah,
really is.
great record. I mean, that whole record, whatever
Hmm.
record called, it wasn't called Iris, but oh,
No, I forget what it's called.
those bands. But I mean, the other answer, I already said it would be like Brandy Carlisle. You
Yeah.
know, it would be her world because I just love the world that she's in. And
Yes.
I mean, I didn't mention Dolly Parton yet, but I should, you know.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's all these artists that are just doing their thing, you know,
Yeah.
and I really do respect the hell out of Brandy Carlisle and singers like
Uh,
Dolly Parton.
Now, on your first album, there is sort of a country song. I don't recall the title. I think it's like the second or third song on that album. I don't
Mm.
recall the title, but it's
Oh,
sort of country. Now, was that like something that you were just like, screw it, I'm going to go country on this one?
you know, I've got some folk influence in me for sure. And maybe
Yeah.
it's the that draws me to, you know, the Brandy Carlisles of the world is
Yeah.
that she's like a pop kind of rock sort of,
Right.
but there's a real folky country edge in there, and it's a little bit of a twang in there.
Yes.
Um, you know, my dad is from Texas, and when we were growing up, he was a lot older, and we listened to a lot of folk music with him. And so, one of the big groups that I was raised on, that he influenced us with was Kingston Trio. You know, I used to
Oh,
listen
nice.
to a lot of Kingston Trio, and if you don't know Kingston Trio, like this is some old folky
No, that's
stuff,
old folky stuff. Yeah.
but
It's really good.
awesome. The harmonies are so great, and the music, the songs, and the storytelling are just so great. And so I think there's a little influence of that in there for me.
Very nice. I'm
Yeah.
looking at it right. I'm trying to find it because it's on my phone, but I don't want to. I'm on my phone right now with this interview, and I don't want to.
Is it the bluesy one that's
I don't know, Melissa. I'm so sorry. I
oh,
wish I knew it.
I
It's
remember.
like the third song. It's like the third or fourth song. I'm sure you
I don't even
remember. You've
have
done a million
the order
times.
of songs. I'm gonna have to look.
I know. I know.
Like
I
that's
could
so
dip out of the interview real quick and check, but
I'll look while we're chatting. I'll look while we're chatting.
okay.
I
I
remember
just
the
I
order
just
of-
loved it because it's sort of country-ish. But I'm not a fan of country. Honestly, Melissa, I'm really not. Like
You're
new
not a country
country,
guy.
no, like new country, it like doesn't really do much for me.
Yeah.
However, I will say that what's the girl who won American Idol? Carrie Underwood. I mean, she's
Oh yeah.
amazing. She's phenomenal. So that kind of country I love. But then I'll do like older country too, like Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, all that. I love it.
Yeah.
But when I heard it, I was just thinking, she's doing a freaking country song. I'm like, this girl's a chameleon, man.
It
I
might
was. I'm like, this is nuts.
I think you're thinking of probably the second song, which is it's kind of a I call it like my blues song. It's a little
Maybe
bit
it's
kind
like
of
slower.
maybe yeah, it's slower. It's a kind of bluesy country song. It's called
Yeah.
Being Down,
Yes,
and
I
it's
think that's what
really like yeah, it's really just I wrote that song. It's my blues. It was
okay.
on a day that I was just beating myself up.
Yeah.
The main line of the song is what I'm afraid of is being down, and
Yes.
it's me trying to kind of come to terms, and I basically call myself on everything in the song. You know, I'm prideful, I'm this, I'm that. It's
Yeah.
just all the different things I was just, you know, thinking that day. But it kind of came out like a kind of a bluesy, drippy sort of country song.
That's exactly what it is.
About
That's
that.
the one. Yep, that's the one. And I was shocked. Well, not shocked, but I was just like, she's doing a damn country song. This is so awesome. Like, I did not expect that.
He is a lot of different things on it.
It
like,
does.
He was really surprised by the last song, Cold Again.
Mm-hmm.
And when I wrote that song, my friend Justin was making a film. Shout out to my friend Justin. And he said, I need a cool song that's kind of blah, 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 blah. And I wrote that song. And when I showed it to my friend Doug, I'm like, this doesn't really fit on this EP. And he's like, why not? Like, let's just do it. So it really, song to song, it's all very different. So
it is very different. Yeah. Although they're slower songs, like when I'm thinking of an album, it's like a lot of, you know, hardcore stuff. But when I heard it, it's just it's very melodic. It's a lot slower. It's there's nothing rushed about it at all. It's all very deliberate. How about that? That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good way to, what's he say?
I would say that's true.
That's true, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, when I heard it, it made me smile because, it's done well. It's done really well. I'll say that. I'll stop blowing up your ego now.
I appreciate it. I really do.
No problem. I really enjoy your talent. I really do. You've got a lot of different things that you pull from, and it's.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we'll see if the theater part of my life, I kind of wonder if that will enter in, more now that I'm older. I'm kind of going in some different directions now. I'm not on tour anymore. I'm working on some projects behind the scenes, but I do kind of wonder, like, what will the next big thing be? Next big project, we'll kind of see what it ends up. I mean, I know what I'm working on right now, but I mean in terms of performing.
Yeah. What if James came back and said, listen, me and the guys are thinking about getting together again, and we're thinking about going out on tour. What do you say, Melissa?
Well, I will say this, when it comes to especially working with James as his voice coach, I will always be there for him for that. The thing about it is Sixx AM could go back out on the road if they wanted and choose singers. So it really depends on the kind of tour they want to do. And I really don't know if that'll happen again. But of course, if they invited me to come do that, we would have a conversation about that. We would talk about that.
Okay. That sounds good. I was thinking, you went on vacation recently and you went off of social for a bit. Yep. I wanted to ask you, how was your vacation?
Oh my God, it was so nice. We, my boyfriend and I have gotten very into camping. I don't know if you're a camper, but
really? That's okay.
Yeah, he was kind of talking about it a bit before. He had gone on his own before. I've never really camped very much in my life. We were like a cabin family, cabin woods in the snow, but I'd never really camped in a tent very much. And he asked, do you want to go for Thanksgiving, just us and the dogs, and go be in the woods? And I was like, yes. And we're doing it again for Christmas. So we had such a time that we were literally right above San Francisco in the redwoods, and it was so lovely. We had the best time. It was a very Thanksgiving, very chill this year,
Good.
Lose my dad a couple years ago. And so the last few years of the holidays have been kind of, we're doing family stuff, but there's a loss there. And, it's been, so it was nice this year to just kind of say, we're just going to kind of go do our own thing. And we really remind ourselves. And to be honest, that kind of solitude, I think we all need it, especially in the world we're in right now, more than we realize we need that. And so when I get a chance to do that with him, we always have a really nice time. And we love being in the woods, and our dogs love being in the woods. How was yours?
So great. That's so awesome. Do you bring your guitar at all, or
no, not to those trips. No, I did a little writing and stuff, but no guitar. I should bring my guitar at some point. We just don't have room for it in the car, to be honest. Kind of ukulele. Did you have a nice holiday as well?
Oh, you're so sweet. Yes, I did. It was very, very nice. Yep. It was just very small. It was really nice. You were saying that your dad had passed away. My mother passed away about a year and a half ago. So same kind of thing. It's it's kind of, we put her, I don't want to sound morbid, but we put her little ashes thing there, and so she could be there with us. Yeah.
dads watch with me everywhere. And if I can bring this up right now, because it's actually a great segue, that's
Of course.
project that I'm actually working on behind the scenes is all about him. So
Oh, that's sweet.
he passed in 2020, and the interesting thing is that I was just working on part of this today. I'm making a documentary podcast about his life and his loss, and I'm getting close to the end. It'll come out sometime in 2023, I'm hoping. But yeah, just because you just went through the same thing, when you lose a parent, it's an interest. I mean, I know other people have different types of relationships, but if you've got a good relationship with your parents, when you lose a parent, it is a very difficult thing, and
it's jarring,
very, very jarring.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because as I work on this project, it's sort of my eulogy to my dad. It's a 11-part at this point episode documentary, but it's me talking about him getting sick, and then at the end talking about losing him. But in between, all those episodes are really just honoring his life.
That's a really awesome idea.
Yeah, the way that we grew up, and also the things I've learned about him after he passed.
Yeah.
Things that I discovered that I did not know. The things that I'm, and sort of realizing, like, our parents are our parents, but they're human beings, and they had a life before me. And so this has been really interesting to go back to his life and kind of go, I wouldn't be here had you not gone through, and just going through the whole scope of his life. But the exciting part is this project is actually going to be paired with an album. So I have 10 songs and all the episodes of the documentary for the podcast. So it's kind of a 2-part project, and it's called
awesome.
So the album will be called Come Back Home. The podcast will be called Come Back Home. And it's about me coming back home to deal with my dad's loss,
That's
so it's
awesome.
Great. I've been working on it all day today. So it's kind of my big thing right now.
I love that. That's great. I wish you all the success with it. That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited about it. It's a personal thing, but I think
very personal.
Stories are interesting. Life stories are interesting. I've had many moments of thinking to myself, is anybody going to care that this? But I think he's interesting. I think people are interesting. I like stories about where, people struggled and where they learned. And he was, I say this in the podcast, but he was an ordinary guy who lived his own extraordinary life. It's like, that's what I want to honor. It's like, what was he doing here? What was his life like? Where did he struggle? So that I can understand him. And in some ways, when you lose them, it's like, how do I stay close to them?
Yes.
They're gone. How do I stay close? And so doing this project has been my way of kind of keeping him closer for longer, even though he's been gone for a couple.
Do you find yourself becoming more emotional because of this? Because you're kind of diving into it? Like, honestly, between you and me and everyone else who's watching, I've kind of like not done that because I just feel like maybe I'm not ready to, and it's been 1.5 years or so. Yeah. I'm not really ready to deal with those feelings, I don't think, so that's got to be rough.
In some ways, I think that, it's been an examination of grief for me.
Right.
He passed in 2020, July of 2020. So it's been over 2 years, not too different from when you lost your mom, actually pretty similar for both of us.
Yep.
It's been my way of processing that. I mean, I feel like it's easier now to talk about it. Like when I started working on this project, I couldn't bring it up without like tearing up. And now I'm a little more able to do that, but I still tear up and I still start crying. I just had an episode or a meeting about this the other day. And I was and actually one of the guys that was on tour with us was Sixx AM, one of the guitar techs. He's doing podcast work now. And so I was talking to him about it and telling him about it. And then it'll just creep up on me, emotions, but that's part of why I'm doing it, because I want to process those things. I don't know a better way than in performance and in storytelling. So this is my first time doing something that's like making a movie. It's like I'm making this whole, and I'm using my voice in a new way, which is really exciting. It's not all singing. A lot of it is narrating and talking and telling this story and writing. And it's been really exciting to do that, but it's been my way of processing his passing and his loss. There's certainly been hard moments, of course. I mean,
Yes.
my dad's military service this past March, and that was one of the hardest things to like really go accept. You know, he got a Purple Heart for his time in Korea,
Wow.
and go actually receive that flag from the Marines. And I mean, there's been moments where it's like,
That's
oh shit, this is hard, this is heavy,
yeah.
but trying to lean in. And I do, to be honest, Greg, that's why I'm making this podcast, so that when someone like you listens to it, and
Yeah.
maybe you haven't done that yet, that deep dive
I
of
definitely have not.
yeah,
I'll be honest with you.
and maybe it will inspire you to do that and open it up a little bit. Like, I think that's why I'm doing it, because I'm hoping that when people listen to it,
Yeah.
they kind of get inspired to like think about their person, that maybe
Yes.
they've gone over those stories in a while. I kind of like, without knowing what it was going to be, when my dad was ill in 2020, like the early part of 2020, 2019 into 2020, I just started recording him talking. And I didn't really know why I was doing it.
Mm.
He would start telling me a story, and unbeknownst to him, I would pull out my phone and press record and just set it next to him.
Wow.
Didn't know why, but that's now what it's turned into, is sort of, he had some unfinished business. He had some things that he still wanted to do that when he died at 88 he hadn't really done.
Okay.
And so I'm trying to take those things over the finish line for him. So it's all part of the podcast.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. I'm so excited to hear it. I'm definitely listening to it for sure. You definitely have one person for sure.
He'll, you know, it's exciting. And I'm sorry for your loss as well. I know what it's like. It's not an easy thing to deal with. And, you know, it's any loss, no loss is easy to deal with. But yeah, there's something a little lonely about losing a parent. It's a different
and
kind.
Hers was sudden too. It was just out of nowhere. And it was
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it was really weird. Thank you. Yeah, it was just very weird. I had been living in Cape Coral, but also at the time I was in this job that I had where I would have off 3 days in a row. So I'd go back to Coral Springs because my family was not here yet. So I'd go there and then be there for a little bit and then come back here and work and go back there. So it was back and forth.
Yeah.
One of the weekends, or one of the 3 days off that I had, is when it happened. I was sitting there and, I'll never forget it, but I got the call where that happened and I was just stunned, out of nowhere.
Sorry, like that is
Thank you.
The one saving grace in our world was that, we kind of knew it was coming, to be honest. I was on this on the podcast. I still was not mentally prepared.
Of course.
Was not mentally prepared. And it's a weird thing to be mentally prepared, even if you know it's coming. So, but to not know at all and to have it talk, I'm sure that is just its own challenge that I can't. I'm so sorry to hear that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It was not, not an easy thing to go through.
Yeah.
But we try every day, to make it a little bit easier.
Right. And it's like this is the thing. It's like any way you can honor them, that's kind of where I am at right now. And I've needed to stay there. I've needed to take the time to process this stuff. I feel like everything I've done, and this will segue us into this actually, but when I wrote that Christmas song a couple years ago and released it, Holiday Lights, it was my first holiday without him. And everything in that song is sort of, the whole bridge says, not all of us will be here though, and it's like that acknowledgement of like, things are changing now.
Right.
And I think that he's sort of in everything I'm doing right now. Like every creative thing I touch has some sort of like nod to my dad. Like it's just kind of where I'm at.
That's so awesome though.
And this will lead us into this, but I have a Christmas song coming out this week.
Oh, good. Talk about it. Let's talk about it.
My next holiday song. And it's a song, it's very cute. And I'm actually really excited for it to come out because it was just, again, it's not about me trying to get a chart topper. It was just fun to make. But my dad and mom used to like really kind of go all out to make us think that Santa had been there as kids. And so they would do this thing where like, we would make the cookies, the milk would be there. My dad would eat the cookies, drink the milk in the middle of the night and write us a note that was so clearly in his handwriting, which is like hilarious. But he would also like take his shoes and he would put them in the soot of the fireplace and walk them around the house to make it like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I wrote this cute Christmas song called He Was Here. And it's all about me as a kid like coming downstairs to check and being convinced, oh shit, like he was here. Santa was here.
Yeah.
So that's what the song is about. It's coming out on Friday. I enjoy holiday songs so much. I don't know if you're that way, but
I love
I
them.
grew up just like loving this time of year because of the music. I
Yeah.
love Christmas songs. I love any holiday songs.
Yeah.
So it's just nice to like put them out and just kind of like do something that's really just like a warm, fuzzy feel good, but it's kind of a cool song. It's
Yeah.
unique for a holiday song. So I'm excited for people to hear it. It'll be fun.
Awesome. I love it. I can't wait to hear it. When are you putting it out?
It's coming out on Friday. So
Nice.
all goes well and my distributor has got it on iTunes and Spotify. It should be there
Good.
at midnight on Friday. So I'll
All right.
definitely be posting about it. And I do have a lyric video coming out for it. I didn't make like an official music video, but I'm doing a little lyric video just so people can kind of follow the story.
Cool. Nice.
And yeah, I'm really excited about it. It'll be
What
fun.
other stuff do you have going on? I mean, it's time to promote Melissa now. So go ahead and promote Melissa.
No, I mean, really, the main things is I would tell everybody like follow along on my personal page here because I'm going to be putting these updates out about this project that I'm working on. The next big project I've got coming out is going to be this podcast and album. So besides this Christmas song coming out on Friday, it's all gearing up towards next year, releasing this thing. And, you know, Come Back Home, the podcast, I want it to continue on. I don't want, it's not just this one season. Once we're done with this season about my dad, then I'm going to start moving into interviewing other people about their losses and interviewing other people who are at the end of life and kind of making it just a continuation of this podcast about grief. And it's a subject that really matters to me right now because I'm in it, you know, but it's kind of, it's been very important to me. And I just think there's a lot of really great stories there. So people like you that have lost that
I was just going to say, if you want one time, maybe I'll come on if I'm ready. If I'm ready.
Having people submit their stories to me and saying, this is a person I lost that I would love to tell their story. And then I interview them and I turn that story into a 1-hour episode. So I'm planning to kind of make this be kind of the next big thing that I'm working on. But in my performing world, you know, I've actually just been kind of thinking about that. What do I want to do next? I recently just recorded a live show that I'm planning to contract out into like the cruise industry, going back to my Broadway and jazz roots.
Good.
I know that industry well, but I've done a lot of concert singing in that world. And to be honest, it is a blast. I mean, it is so fun to go on stage and sing, you know, just a mix of styles for an hour, and audiences really love it. So I'm just gearing up for a lot of like new performance sort of things. But I got a family here in LA. I also like to stay put and here in town. So, you know, I'm always gigging and doing stuff around town here as well. So
do you play gigs a lot?
You know, it depends. It's been since the pandemic, it's been a different time.
Yeah.
So it's just been a different, I think a lot of people that were doing certain types of jobs before the pandemic, a lot of it shifted.
Yeah.
I created my own solo show this year to take out into that industry because before the pandemic, I was working for other shows, and you know, it's just kind of like you got to figure out what you want to do next. A lot of the kind of gigs I've done, like touring, I love touring, but touring is like takes over your whole life. So you got to be on the bus and you're never at home. I'm kind of in a phase now, like we're talking about, kind of a different time in my life, and I'm happy being home. I still want to get out and perform, but changing up the kind of stuff that I'm doing, I would say.
And I totally understand completely. I like not being like a person that's gigging all the time. That's where I am, you know, in that phase of life.
Yeah, it hasn't been a big gigging time in my life. The last few years, it hasn't been. And that's because I was going through that loss in the pandemic, and it's been okay. It's taken me a little time to be gearing up to get back into that world and get back into figuring out what I want to do. But to be honest, I was really missing singing musical theater, and I was really missing doing other stuff. So in 2019, I did a couple cabarets here in Los Angeles, like at small theaters. And I really love doing that. And that's what really inspired me to create my own show so that I can go out somewhere, whether it's Palm Springs or on a ship somewhere or wherever it might be, and tell stories for an hour, but get to do it with songs that I've chosen. So it's really fun because that show that I'm doing, it's like, I'm singing Barbara Streisand numbers from Funny Girl, but I'm also singing Shania Twain, and I'm also singing this and that. It's like a big mix of stuff,
Yeah.
Tina Turner, Judy Garland medley. It's like a
Wow.
whole,
Big
but I
voices.
love that. I love that. Judy Garland, man, I didn't mention Judy
Big
Garland before.
voice.
Huge influence on me growing up. And
Oh, yeah.
so being able to go out and sing a medley of her songs that I created, that's my own medley, that, that's really a joy for me. And there's a different, it's one thing to be at a rock show and have a bunch of rock fans in front of you and that energy.
Yep.
And it's another thing to go in front of an audience and sing stuff like this, music that they don't get to hear all the time,
Yeah.
but so much. And it
Yeah.
means me too. And so, yeah, I'm really hoping that 2023 will be a time where you'll see me posting like, hey, come catch me out here.
Yeah.
I'm doing my thing. So I'm kind of in the process of getting it out there and setting it up, and we'll see what comes,
I remember seeing some videos of you. I don't know if it was on your, I don't think it was on your voice page. It was on this page where you posted videos of you singing that type of stuff, like cabaret type stuff.
Yeah.
And it was really cool because you could tell you were having so much fun.
Yeah.
You were just really enjoying yourself,
I love theater, and that's the world that I came from. When I was 11 years old and I joined this children's theater company, I was doing 2 Broadway style shows a year. And it was my favorite thing in the world. And I still feel that way. So a lot of my friends are in the theater industry and on Broadway and on the West End, and I love it. So
oh, that's great.
I still think that it will be part of my life at some point. I've always told myself that even if I were to go for the Broadway, I'm 36. It's like, even if I were to do that when I'm 45, it's still going to be in the cards for me.
Yeah.
At some point, it's just figuring out kind of when and how. And it really is like, what roles do you want to play? What things do you want to go do? What do you want to do with your time and your energy?
Yeah.
And so I do want to go back to theater at some point. I know that I will do that, but I think this stuff just kind of happens organically. It's like, that's how I've always done it. I just kind of let myself follow what feels good at the moment. It's working for me.
Yeah. That's exciting. I can't wait to see what the future holds for you. Really, I can't, because you have such talent, and I don't want you to ever not sing or perform or whatever, because it's always a pleasure to watch your videos and to listen to your songs, and even to watch your coaching videos. When you're talking about voice, it's very interesting for me being a singer. It's very interesting to hear what you have to say.
The lesson at some point, Greg, come do a free consult. Let's talk about
your
voice.
Oh yeah.
But truly, for anyone watching, if you have any interest in studying voice, and again, studying voice, just to be clear, does not mean classical voice. It means figuring out what you can do for yourself to be a stronger singer, to be more in control. You said you have a big voice. I do too. It's like, how do you control that big voice? How do you not blow that out? How do you learn to hone your energy and tell stories, but not feel like you got to push? And so different singers have different habits, different things they're trying to work through. And my specialty now is really in the health side of it, but also the style side of it. Like, how do you free up your own style? So anybody who is interested in kind of figuring out what their voice can do, come chat with me. I'd love to meet you, and follow me at Melissa Harding Voice, and tell me if you have any questions. I'm always happy to answer.
That's awesome. Melissa, I appreciate it so much, you hanging out with me. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you for reaching out and asking me to chat. It's been really nice to chat with you, and we'll again at some point.
Absolutely. I would love to do that. Thank you very, very much. And if you are going to do the other thing, I would love to maybe be a part of that, maybe. Once I'm ready.
Say that again?
To do the, talking about our grief and things like that. I may be able to do that. I'm not sure yet.
No, honestly,
we'll talk
please
about it.
Just stay in touch with me about it, because something that as I get through releasing this part of the story, I've already got it in my head that there's going to be more coming. Really think that if I could unlock that, where all of a sudden people are wanting to talk about I think there's something huge there, and I think that, just like people are just like me, I'm obsessed with Dateline. It's like people are obsessed with these stories just about something that happened. But life is interesting. Is interesting, that somebody comes and then we go. It's like, it is so interesting to me. So we will definitely talk about that.
Okay.
Definitely.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank
Right.
you for having me.
Thanks a lot for being on. I appreciate it.
We'll talk very soon.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks a lot, Melissa.
Bye.
Have a good day. Well, what a pleasure to talk to Melissa Harding. That was really nice. Thanks a lot for hanging out, everyone that did. Next week, I have Dennis Grunling on here, master harmonica player, blues harmonica guy. And I've got some more shows coming up. So just make sure you tune in. I really appreciate everyone that's hanging out with us tonight. And my name is Greg M. Thank you so much. And I'll see you next time. Thanks a lot. Have a good night.